For years now, those of us working in the IT world have been doing our due diligence and patching our systems as often as we can. Not as often as we should, given all the security breaches that make headlines on an almost daily basis, but as much as possible while keeping business stakeholders happy by applying security patches without causing too many disruptions to business activity. The conventional approach to patching vulnerabilities typically requires a significant amount of manual work, and this approach often involves IT teams having to wait weeks to apply patches until the affected systems can undergo a system reboot. Let's look at this conventional manual patching approach in action. Let's say a vulnerability is announced that impacts the running kernel on a few hundred of your servers. Being a diligent sysadmin, security expert, or one of the myriad roles that now have some responsibility to keep systems updated, you go through the motions of checking for patch availability, testing a deployment, planning for the expected downtime, and then going back to your IT manager with a request for a maintenance window lasting 10 hours. A few days after, you receive approval for a maintenance window of just 5 hours, and the soonest it can happen is 5 weeks from now. You can already see where the problem lies. With the explosion of new common vulnerabilities and exposures, or CVEs, and the rate at which they are exploited in the wild, it can be very risky to run known vulnerable systems for 5 weeks until you can finally deploy the patch. How many new vulnerabilities can pop up during this prolonged waiting period? Fast forward 5 weeks, and with extraordinary luck, you haven't been breached, at least as far as you can tell. You now start your maintenance process. You go over all your servers, run your automation tool of choice, and deploy the patches to each one, then reboot those servers to pick up the changes. Fortunately, all goes according to plan, so your systems are now protected. And all it cost the company was 5 hours of downtime and 5 weeks of running a vulnerable system. Now let's consider what would happen if you had instead opted for a more modern approach to patching and used an automated live patching solution. Live patching is the process of updating running code in memory without interrupting any system activity, all the while maintaining operational integrity. Nothing breaks, nothing needs a reboot, and there is no need for a service restart. One moment the system is vulnerable, and the next moment it's patched and protected. Returning to the previous example, the new vulnerability alert pops up, and you check for patch availability from your live patching provider. It's already listed as available. If you go the fully automated route, instead of going through all the steps mentioned previously, you check and your systems have already deployed the patch and are no longer vulnerable. The whole process took minutes, and no one even noticed. There's no waiting for maintenance windows, no need to get approval for any business interruptions. It just works. If you want more finely grained control, when you check for the patch being available, you can now select your control group of systems and deploy the patch to those first. It all happens within seconds. After double-checking that everything is still running as smoothly, then you deploy to the rest of your infrastructure. You see, automated live patching is a modern approach to a modern IT landscape issue. If your infrastructure is no longer the same as it was 20 years ago, why are you still patching like it is? Everything has changed, from cloud services to automation to the number of vulnerabilities and time it takes to exploit them. So your patching methodology has to adapt as well. Just because it worked well in the past does not mean there isn't a better way to do it today, because there is a better way, thanks to automated live patching.